My name is Brace Draper, and I'm 27 years old. I'm married to a beautiful and cheerful woman named Shelley Draper, who is just a year younger than me. We've been married for 5.25 years, so everything is still just beginning. Every marriage has its challenges. I want to tell you about how our marriage almost fell apart. I read an interesting article online about how the new data collected from various scientific satellites in orbit have made us rethink what we know about space. It seemed almost comical to me that we've developed such a perception of things. Books and university lectures are prepared to teach people theories that become truth. Then new information emerges, and we discard the truth and replace it with a new truth. Former experts lose their popularity, and new ones appear. So I was reading this article and thinking about our amazing universe when my wife, whom I had been to for over 5 years, walked into the living room and firmly announced that this Friday she was going on a date with a male colleague. It was unexpected, out of character, and completely unlike her. Her body language, hand on her hip, and a facial expression. That said, I expect objections, but I've already made up my mind, left me confused. Shelley loves to argue. In my opinion, her logic can sometimes be flawed, but I've often been defeated by her persistence in defending her point of view. She usually doesn't give up until she wins, and she wins quite often. But our arguments have never been about anything as critical or dangerous as this could become. What should I do? She continued. This doesn't mean that I don't love you, and it shouldn't affect our relationship with each other. But I've discovered that I just want to explore my sexuality, meet new men, and broaden my horizons. I know this might upset you and make you feel hurt, but you need to know that I will always come back to you and remain your wife forever. This won't affect us in any way. We are forever. We are an amazing team, and I believe that in the long run this could make us stronger. And who knows? Maybe I'll learn a few tricks that we can share with each other to improve our time. In the bedroom, I sat there ineptly trying not to explode, while a flood of reactions rushed through my mind. Strangle her, beat her half to death, threaten divorce, threaten a bloody mess. Yes, a bloody mess was high on my list. Cry and grind my teeth, make her grind her teeth again. The bloody mess, just walk away. Argue, argue, argue. As her scripted speech, I was sure it was scripted, rehearsed, and possibly even co-written by someone else, came to an end. A thought crossed my mind. This changes the game. Our game. It means we need to establish new rules. How could I make her understand my point of view? This thought was triggered by an old memory of reading about Tom Sawyer and his fence-painting trick in that story by Mark Twain. Tom made a terrible chore seem appealing to his friends and got them to do his work by changing their perception. Perception. Perception is reality. This changed everything. Armed with this new realization, I turned away in deep thought, widened my eyes, and smiled with enthusiastic approval. That's a great, brilliant idea this Friday, you say. Wow, I never thought of that possibility. All right, let's do it. Shelley seemed slightly taken aback by my agreement and furrowed her brow. A little surprised by my reaction, she collected herself and mumbled, "Oh, you cool. I'm glad you agree. This went better than I expected. I thought you'd get angry. Well, I guess we're okay." A smile appeared on her face, but she still looked a bit puzzled that I stood up, took her hands, smiled widely, and looked in her eyes. No, this is great news. I'm excited and relieved. There's this sweet girl I've run into a few times at the gym, and she's made it clear that she really likes me. I gently turned her down, saying, I'm married and not looking to cheat on my wife, but this just opens the door to all kinds of possibilities. I can't wait to talk to her and let her know that we're open to having fun. Thank you, thank you. I almost burst out laughing at the shocked expression and the sudden loss of color from Shelley's face. I headed to the kitchen, trying to hide my smirk, and set over my shoulder. I'll grab some mineral water. You don't want anything? No thanks, came the raspy reply. Her voice carried uncertainty and confusion. And this is much better than beating her half to death. Plus, I won't even get jail time. I stood in front of the wall calendar, and as if in a theatrical whisper, I voiced a plan. So let's see, tomorrow is Wednesday, and she usually comes early on Wednesdays. I'll have to head to the gym a bit earlier to make sure I talk to her first thing. I hope she's still into me and hasn't moved on to someone else. Let's check if she's free this Friday. Damn, I hope she is. This could be so sexy. I love her voluptuous chest. I'm gonna have sex with her until we pass out. Yeah, this is just too good. I need to pack my gym gear and throw it in the car. Probably should use some nice aftershave to turn her on. Friday, baby, you and me. Oh yeah. I drank my mineral water and stared at the calendar. But in reality, I was paying more attention to Shelley out of the corner of my eye, watching her frown at me. What not part of the plan? Whose sweetheart? She didn't say a word, but her breathing and demeanor showed she was unhappy. This wasn't in her script good. I returned to the couch and pretended to continue reading the article, but I couldn't focus on a single line. I was more focused on Shelley without directly looking at her and her obvious discomfort. I hoped she was thinking about what to say. I'm sure the arguments she expected to hear from me were running through her head like words she could use against me. But how could she say them without coming across as a complete hypocrite? Let her struggle with that, for heaven's sake. After a while, she sighed heavily and said, "I'm tired. I think I'll go to bed. Will you be coming up soon?" Brace. Yes. I think I'll finish this article in about half an hour and come up good night. Shelley. She gave me a quick kiss and turned toward the stairs leading to our bedroom. She turned her head back to me and Sadie, love you, Brace. There was a lot of strong emotion. In those words, I felt deep pain, disappointment, and sadness. This was a serious turning point for us, and many of the paths ahead weren't pleasant. Sitting there, I mentally replayed the past couple of weeks. I was inclined to take Shelley at her word and had probably let a lot of things slide without raising any suspicion. I think it's time to start being suspicious, analyzing the situation. I couldn't find a single clear piece of evidence that she was cheating except wait a minute. Phone calls and texts. A few recent phone calls were made in whispers and in secluded corners of our house. When I asked about them, she said they were from her sister and that they were personal, adding that she had the right to her privacy. I didn't question it, but it was unusual. Normally calls to and from her sister were taken when we were together, and they never seemed personal. Afterward, she would often tell me about them, sharing family news and silly incidents that made both of us laugh. No secrets until the past couple of weeks. Text messages. It seemed like she started receiving more texts lately, ones that made her smile or even quietly giggle. It's time to do a little investigation. While Shelley was getting ready for bed in the bathroom, I went over to the computer and checked the call logs from her mobile phone. Over the past 2 weeks, I noted 4 calls and 6 text messages that came to her phone from an unknown number during the evening hours. Just to be sure, I searched my contacts for her sister's number and confirmed that it wasn't her cell. I wrote down this unfamiliar number and on a sudden impulse tried to find it online. The number was linked to someone named Jason Marston, and the brief information provided included his address. He lives in our city. I noted down his address, then logged into the website of Shelley's employer and accessed her account. Shelley works as the head of human resources at Maple Brothers Engineering and Design. Her primary responsibilities involve time management, tracking vacations, sick days, leave, and so on. She has access to the company's employee database, and I had helped her run specialized searches before when she needed to find a phone number or email address. It only took me a second to find out that old Jason had been working at Maple for just 7 months. That was all I needed to know. He had been calling and texting my wife, and he was definitely not her sister. Now the future of our marriage was on thin ice, and if I found out she had already cheated on me with him, we would truly be over. I logged into her email account. The fact that her password hadn't changed gave me a small sense of relief. There were no emails from Jason, but when I searched for his name in the email text, several mentions came up. It seemed that a woman named Darcy Sellers had informed Shelley that Jason was asking about her and trying to get her personal information. Darcy had told Shelley that Jason thought my wife was sexy and wanted to sleep with her. Darcy thought Jason was attractive and encouraged Shelley to play with him. The emails back and forth were full of comments about flirting, and Darcy kept pushing Shelley to take it to the inevitable conclusion. Shelley claimed she hadn't agreed to sleep with him yet, but Darcy kept urging her to go for it. This weekend was supposed to be their first date to see where things would lead. Damn that I wandered around aimlessly gathering my gym clothes, making enough noise to make it clear what I was doing and pack them into the car for tomorrow. I planned to go to the gym, but more for show than anything else. I got ready for bed and had a restless night thinking about our future. The next morning on Wednesday, I got up early and, humming as if in a good mood, cheerfully headed to the gym. Let her wonder what I'm up to. I worked out at the gym, not really talking to anyone, and then went to work as usual. I tried unsuccessfully not to think about what to do next at home, but I managed to work effectively and earn my paycheck. At the end of the day, I headed home, still without a clear idea of what my next steps would be or where Shelley and I stood. I arrived home from work and pulled into our garage. Shelley's car was already there, and when I placed my hand on the hood, I found it was still fairly warm, so she had arrived not long before me. I paused at the door to the kitchen, took a deep breath, and prepared to continue playing my new role. Opening the door, I smiled and greeted my wife with "Hi, baby," and headed toward the bedroom, taking off my tie and jacket. As I walked climbing the stairs, I said over my shoulder, "Tell me, Shelley, can we talk a bit about this weekend? I think we should set some ground rules for the future, so we're on the same page." Shelley responded, "Yes, I think we should talk. I've already ordered Chinese food for delivery. I hope that's okay with you." Her voice trembled as if she was off balance. The evening promised to be interesting, spiced with tense moments. I could already feel the tension, both mine and hers. When I returned to the kitchen, now in jeans and a t-shirt, I noticed the food had already arrived, and we started filling our plates from the small cardboard containers as we worked. I began since you've had time to think and plan for this weekend, and I just learned about our new relationship model. I made a few notes and even put together a flowchart. I smirked. Yes, you can take the boy out of programming, but you can't take programming out of the boy to make sure we don't end up getting on each other's nerves or wanting to kill each other. I've written down a few rules that I'd like to discuss with you, work through, and reach a mutual agreement on. I'm just certain this is the most reasonable approach. I don't want our extramarital activities to destroy us. Shelley gasped sharply, and I noticed her wide-eyed look, which I ignored. Yes, we can talk about it, her voice trailed off. Let me understand what you mean well, for example, and I'm sure this is important. No games here in our house. I just think we should mutually respect that this is our space, and only our space. Secondly, no disrespect toward each other. When we're sleeping with our sex partners, she gasped again. That's just rude and will harm us in the long run. Third, our shared activities or plans come first. We shouldn't cancel or disrupt our plans just to accommodate a lover, and no deceit, we're partners, and lies and dishonesty will ultimately destroy us. These are just some of the thoughts that came to mind, so I'd like us to mutually agree on some boundaries like reasonable adults. What do you think? We were already sitting at the table, and Shelley nearly choked on her food. It seemed like reality was becoming hard to digest. Good. I have doubts about all of this. I don't know, it's all getting too complicated, Shelley said, quietly staring down at her plate. At that moment, my phone rang, and I looked at the screen, raising my eyebrows in feigned recognition. Hold that thought, I need to take this call. I'll be right back. I quickly walked into our small office, closed the door so no one could overhear me, set my phone to record, and answered the call in a low voice. Hello. The caller spoke with a strong accent from the Indian subcontinent. Hello, Mr. Draper. This is the IRS, and we found that you owe us $1,326 in unpaid taxes from 2021. Hi. I'm so glad you called. Yes, I'm really excited about Friday night. What time works for you? I glanced at the light coming from under the door and noticed two shadows the size of small feet. Shelley was listening. What Friday are you talking about? This is serious. You owe us $1,326, and if we don't receive payment immediately, we will send the police to arrest you. Great, that works for me too. I'll pick you up from your apartment and take you to a nice restaurant for dinner, and then we can head back to your place for the rest of the night. What kind of food do you like? I'm so glad you're still interested in being my sex partner. You really turn me on. We're not going on a date. We'll send the police to arrest you. If you don't go and buy gift cards for the amount of $1,326 and give us the card numbers, do you really think this is some kind of joke? Oh, you naughty girl. Yes, of course, we can skip dinner and just eat at your place, but I wanted to treat you properly, which is why I suggested going out for dinner the whole weekend. We can arrange that too. If we both decide that's what we want. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. What's wrong with you? When the police arrive, I'll make sure they teach you some manners. This is very serious. You're going to regret this. I laughed. All right. I promise I'll treat you right straight in your bed. You're driving me crazy. The caller's frustration was off the charts. Screw you, idiot. The police are already on their way. You'll regret ever dealing with me. By the time you get out of prison, you'll be an old man. Thanks for calling. You made my evening. I'm looking forward to Friday. Sleep well and dream of me. Bye-bye. Darling. I ended the call, though I think they hung up before I said the last word. What a wonderful call. It felt like I was having sex with two people at once. I had to pause to calm down and avoid laughing out loud. When I opened the door, I saw Shelley's face pale as ash. Who was that? I had to stop myself from blurting out. Jake from State Farm. Instead, I told the truth. I thought it was an important call I was expecting, but it turned out to be some idiot pretending to be the IRS demanding that I buy gift cards. I think it's really sad that scammers try to make people believe this crap. It makes me sick. I guess I'll have to warm up my food now. What a waste of time. Shelley gave me a suspicious look as I walked past her toward the kitchen for added effect. I started whistling a cheerful tune. When I returned to the table, Shelley looked at me with disgust and muttered that didn't sound like a call from a scammer. Oh, so you were eavesdropping what happened to the privacy lectures. You gave me after those recent calls from your sister when I asked about them, and yes, I used air quotes when I said sister. We sat in silence for a while, eating until Shelley put down her fork and said firmly, I don't want you going on a date with your friend this weekend. She looked at me with fire in her eyes. I looked up at her and calmly replied, and what do you expect me to do while you're on your date? Stay home and knit. My expression turned into a hard sneer and my voice boomed. Listen to me very carefully. I have options too. If you want to change the rules of our marriage, you better believe I can and will play as well. We're in an equal partnership. If you want to treat me like a fool and run around with someone else, then let's end this marriage, and you can find some poor idiot who will put up with it. I won't. Shelley angrily frowned, pushed away from the table, and hissed, God, why can't you be like Tony Sellers and just accept that your wife wants to have a little fun? Tony lets Darcy have her flings well. Maybe you should have married Tony Sellers. Shelley stormed off to our bedroom and locked herself inside. I sat there and kept eating, but the orange chicken suddenly lost all its flavor. I packed up the remaining food and put it in the fridge. I thought about bursting into the bedroom and causing a scene, but decided it was still too early. And maybe Shelley just needed some time to feel the burn. I had made my position clear. Now it was up to her to decide what she really wanted. My stomach rumbled as I sat on the couch and thought this was definitely a turning point in our marriage. I hoped that my response to her announcement yesterday would help her realize how hurtful it was and make her feel all the emotions I had felt. I guess we'll see. I started thinking about what I really wanted. In the end, I liked this crazy lady, and I was becoming more convinced that she had been fed bad fantasies and advice from that character. Darcy, the new guy who's been giving her flirty looks and flattering her, could be causing her to lose focus on our relationship. I've had some cities give me flirty looks and try to flirt with me. I mean, I'm not a young Antonio Banderas, but I'm no fool either. So I know how it can make someone's head spin if she keeps going down this path we're done. But I was really hoping that my attempt at playing out the drama had opened her eyes to the other side of the coin. I decided to take some action. I looked up information about divorce in our state, and it became clear that everything would be split 50,000 and 50. Since we both earn about the same, we don't have children. The house is small, and there's no significant capital worth mentioning. I filled out and printed the divorce papers, then researched prenuptial agreements as a way to establish new rules. Since our game is changing, trust in my mind had been seriously shaken. At the very least, we were about to have a very serious conversation at the table. I was tired of being accommodating and passive. I'm sure her statement yesterday was a way to test the waters and that she hadn't done anything yet that could destroy our marriage yet. However, I wasn't going to agree to reconciliation if she had already cheated. I wandered around aimlessly, not really accomplishing anything, just stalling for time, giving Shelley space to think. I waited. More than an hour and a half passed before I heard the bedroom door open and Shelley quietly entered the living room. From the way she walked, I could tell her demeanor had changed. Can I talk to you? Brace? Her voice was quiet and remorseful. Nothing like it had been last night. Of course, come sit next to me. I tried to sound as open and receptive as possible. I patted the couch beside me as an invitation. Brace, I realize I've been acting foolishly. I almost gasped at those words. How far had this gone? Was it really over between us? I stayed still and could hardly breathe. I've been flirting and having lunch with a guy from work, and I told him I'd go on a date with him this weekend. My friend Darcy pushed me into it. She's been having affairs with guys for years, even though she's married, and she always brags about how much fun it is. Her husband knows everything and lets her do all of it. Darcy coached me on how to approach you. I planned an entire speech and even prepared responses to the arguments you might bring up to convince you to let me do something very selfish. I'm sorry. I was shocked when you were happy and immediately agreed. I was even more shocked when I found out you had someone waiting to take my place. I was crushed, but how could I argue with that? You hurt me. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep thinking about how cruel that was of you. And at some point during the night, I realized that's exactly what I had done to you. You didn't pretend to be hurt, but I saw and felt your point of view. You were just flipping the situation on its head, and I felt the full weight of it. She gave a silly smirk and said, "You really hit me hard. Jerk." Then she continued, "Today I replayed everything in my head and almost convinced myself that you made it all up until that phone call came. Could you really have done that?" When I tried to pull myself together, you hit me again with that conversation, and I realized we were on the brink of disaster. I feel like a complete idiot. I married you for many reasons, and every day you live up to my expectations. I was pleased with myself because someone else was complimenting me and playing along with me. It felt like I was back in school being courted. It was exciting and I felt completely special, and then you showed me that you're special too, and that I could lose you. I can't and don't want to let that happen. I love you, and only you. I just canceled my weekend plans and made it clear that it's over with him. We will never go on a date, and just so, and I swear on everything I hold sacred. I never had any physical contact with him. I never cheated on you, but I came close, and I know you might have doubts because of my behavior last night and what I said. How can I make you cancel your weekend and come back to me and only me? Tears welled up in her eyes, and I was finally able to breathe. I paused for a moment and realized that we couldn't just go back to 2 days ago. A chasm had opened up between us, one that needed to be crossed. It's going to take work. Can we trust each other again? How can we know what the other person is really planning? Even though you say you canceled the date, how do I know you're not just postponing your meeting with Jason Marston or some other jerk? Finding another way in time to carry out your betrayal? Canceling just to make me cancel my plans? How do I know when trust is broken? Can it be rebuilt? Am I going to have to test and question you for the rest of our marriage? I said this in an angry, raised voice, feeling as though I was suffocating from the emotions. She looked shocked and said, "So you know his name? How and did you find out from whom?" I didn't answer her. I just let her reflect on this revelation. When she first sat down, she kept a distance, but now she moved closer to me and hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry. Can we just be ourselves for a while until we figure this out? I don't want to think about it anymore today. This is such heavy stuff," she whispered. "Let's just be together tonight, and we'll come back to it tomorrow. I just want to feel you close to me to hold on to some hope that you won't push me away. I'm sorry for bringing us to this point. God, I don't want it to end. Please." I leaned back and let her rest against my chest. We breathed together and just held each other in silence. Despite our physical closeness, the chasm between us remained. There was so much to go through, so much to rebuild if that was even possible. When we finally went to bed, she began kissing and touching me, but the chasm was still there. I drifted off to sleep for a little while and woke up to the sound of her quietly crying and repeating, "Fool, I'm such a damn fool. Darcy, why did I listen to you?" We slept, but the tension was obvious, and I know we both woke up during the night, deeply immersed in our own soup of suffering. The night was long. Thursday promised to be a tough day of waiting and reflection. We both left for work, agreeing that when we got home, we would have a serious, difficult conversation. We agreed to just eat the leftover Chinese food from the fridge barely touched from the night before. No wine or beer tonight. This conversation required a very clear mind, and here it was the moment of reckoning. I placed 2 documents, the divorce papers and the prenuptial agreement, in folders. One was labeled A and the other B. I laid them face down on the table. Shelley glanced at the folders and then looked at me with a bit of trepidation. I looked directly at her and waited for her to begin. I decided that since she had stirred up this mess, she should be the one to start sorting it out. She began, "Brace, I'm sorry. I deeply regret opening this door, and I just want to close it and lock it forever. Do you think you can just forgive and forget, go back to what we had and move forward? We all make mistakes, and I know I made a very big one. What do you say?" She smiled, hopefully waiting for my response. No. She looked devastated. I continued, "Shelley, over the past couple of weeks, you've lied to me about calls from your sister, which were actually from a man you planned to cheat on me with. You admitted to flirting, having lunches, and getting closer to someone else, all while keeping it a secret from me. That's unacceptable behavior for someone who claims to love and be faithful to me. You've made me doubt my trust in you. Going forward, I see only two options. Option." I picked up and handed her. The folder is an agreement we both adhere to, laying out our understanding of behavior that's acceptable to both sides. It's fairly strict for both of us. If we can't agree, then there's option B, just a divorce. We don't have much, so we can easily split everything 50-50 and go our separate ways. Divorce. Shelley squealed. No, you can't be serious. I can't live without you. Forgive me. Please forgive me." I waited for her to calm down. "Shelley, I don't want that either, but I'm serious. If we can't agree on how to rebuild trust with each other," Shelley whimpered. "What about you? I know you lied to me about that phone call yesterday. It wasn't a scam call." Her eyes narrowed. "You see, trust is hard to rebuild. Once it's broken, we'll talk about that call in a few minutes after we reach an agreement known as option A. Can we at least agree to work together on drafting an acceptable agreement? I want to emphasize that this agreement is something we both need to adhere to." Shelley took her copy of the agreement and muttered something about how all these formalities were complete. "Nonsense, wow. This is really strict. The phone must always be on with the tracking app activated so each of us can see where the other is at all times. Mumbling. If you leave your workplace, send a text to your spouse about where you're going and when you'll be back, and carry your phone with the tracking app on. Be prepared for your spouse to show up at that location without warning to check on you. Damn. If you go anywhere after work or at any other time without your spouse, make sure to say exactly where you're going and always keep your phone on Al." Right. I get it. Our leash is very short. I really hope we can eventually reach a point where we both consider these things unnecessary. She set aside her copy and looked at me intently. "I can't believe we've come to this, but I understand I'm sorry for hurting you and making you not trust me. Basically, I agree with everything, but I want to add a few points. More positivity, like spending more time together, going on dates, just the two of us, and really talking about everything, what we're doing, feeling, and dreaming about. I want us to become stronger. I desperately want us to get through this." I couldn't help but smile and agree. We made a few changes and both signed our new agreement. Shelley gave a silly grin and said, "Maybe we should add that we agree to have serious sex very regularly, so we're either too tired or too in love to look at anyone else." We added that as an amendment. I told you she's won a lot of arguments. She stood up from the table, walked over, and sat on my lap. The kisses she gave me were passionate, full of love and hope. "Tell me that we're going to be okay, and that you still want me to be your wife." I took her face in my hands and said, "I still very much want you to be my wife. I think we'll be okay. I want to hear about that phone call." She stated firmly that I pulled out my phone and played her the recording. "Oh my God, you're a sneaky bastard. Remind me never to cross swords with you again, bastard," she said, playfully punching me, giggling, and hugging me for another kiss. According to our new agreement, serious sex was supposed to happen immediately. Well, that was clearly stated in writing. Several months have passed since that fateful Thursday. We've been getting along well, only occasionally referring to the terms of the agreement, except for the sex, which has been very frequent, and it has actually helped bring us closer, showing up to a few lunch meetings unannounced and happily greeting my wife, who hugs me tightly and introduces me to everyone, has paid off greatly. We spend much more time together and tell each other everything. Life is good that we were sitting on the couch discussing plans for the upcoming 3-day weekend. When Shelley's phone rang, she frowned and quietly muttered, "I wonder why my boss is calling me so late in the evening." "Hi, Betty, what a surprise is everything." "Okay, there was some conversation from the phone, but I couldn't make out anything." Shelley gasped. "You're kidding, when did this happen?" More mumbling from the phone. "Wow, that's unbelievable. I'll get in touch with my team right away and see you tomorrow at exactly 7 a.m. in the main conference room. Got it. Good night. Betty Shelley hung up and sat silently staring at her phone with a very worried look on her face. What happened? Baby, you look shocked. Are you okay? Shelley looked at me with the same worried expression and replied, tomorrow morning, all HR staff have to attend a meeting to hear about changes in leadership policies that were demanded by the lawyers to reinforce the companions for ionization policy. It seems Darcy was caught in bed at home with Jason Marston, her husband. Tony walked in on them, and Jason started mouthing off, insulting Tony and laughing at him. I guess Tony snapped, dragged Jason out of the house by his hair naked, and began beating him brutally. Jason is in the hospital, and they're not sure if he'll be okay. His face is badly damaged, and he's going to lose at least one eye. Darcy tried to stop Tony, but ended up getting knocked down and lost several teeth in the fight. She's in the hospital, too. Tony is in jail. I raised an eyebrow looking at Shelley. She caught my gaze and raised her hand to stop me. Don't say it, please. Don't say what you're thinking. I get it. I was about to follow Darcy down that rabbit hole. It seems Tony didn't handle her behavior as well as she thought, damn it. I couldn't stay quiet from what I know about Darcy and Tony. They're a bit older than us, and Tony probably stood to lose a lot more in a divorce than we would at this earlier stage of our relationship. Maybe that's why he stayed quiet and let it all happen. I guess he finally reached his breaking point. Shelley just nodded, lightly punched me in the chest, and said, I asked you not to comment. I laughed at her reaction, but I couldn't help feeling upset that 3 lives were ruined because a couple of selfish jerks wanted to change the rules. I'm glad we're not in the same sinking boat as them. I can only hope that we've both learned from their mistakes. For now, our game has changed, but maybe there will come a time when we can live by the old rules again. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of English Epic. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.